Hi everyone, I'm Sunny and today's pick a card is going to be about oddities people find interesting about you. So I have 4 piles you guys can choose from. From left to right, I have pile 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you're more than welcome to pause the video if you need more time to contemplate on the pile of your choice or piles of your choice. Otherwise, I will start with the first pile. So pile number 1. You guys have the 2 of Cups reversed. So even though this is like a reversal, it does feel like some oddities people find interesting about you is the fact that maybe that you are single, right? And that's not like a jab at you, but it's more like, imagine you like being a great catch because that's how people view you. You may not view yourself like this, but in other people's perceptions, they might see you as someone that's such a good catch. It's a little bit derogatory when they say this, but like, why are you single kind of thing. It's like, oh, you would be a great partner, or you would be great at like, being I hate the stereotype, but it's like being a parent, for example. It just feels like they kind of wonder maybe as to why you are quote unquote single in their eyes, but maybe for you you're like, well, no, it's different. Like, I could be with people, but that doesn't mean I have to announce it publicly. I'm just a very private person. So it does feel like you're someone that could possibly keep that to themselves, and people might have that assumption of like, oh, this person is single, kind of thing. Sorry. But they do have that assumption, like, oh, this person's such a great catch. Why are they single? But maybe you're not single, but you're just not announcing it to them. So it does feel like that. Or you're someone that is very independent as well, that they find interesting. Oddities aren't always an insult, but it's just peculiar behavior that they're not used to, so that maybe stands out to them because maybe in your culture or in your realm of friends or acquaintances, everyone seems to be already with a partner, or everyone seems to be trying to settle down already. It's things like that. And you're not necessarily following that scope of reality when it comes to that progress, like that progression in life is just not for you. This doesn't mean it's never going to be for you. It just means like you're following a very different path, when it's like it's not a linear path. For you it's like first this and then this and maybe that and then finally maybe that, like maybe finally settling with a partner. But in this point in time, it just feels like you're not following the same steps as everybody else, and that's what they find peculiar. It's like you think that by now they'd be married, or they'd be like more quote unquote serious about somebody, but it's like no, like maybe you're someone that's putting your cup specifically just to yourself. You're just focusing on yourself, and you maybe just really feeling the creativity flow, and it could be a distraction maybe just to be in a union with a partner. So that could be something that's interesting. Or if you're someone that they have seen with partners, they see you as somebody can walk away from toxic partners and start a new relationship. Not maybe right away, but it does feel like you have no issue, moving on from somebody that was not favorable to you to somebody else that will be. So it feels like that. They're like, wow, they're amazed at how easily you can possibly find true love, for example. So that's what I have for you, pile number 1. Pile number 2. You guys have the Lovers reverse. I'm sorry. You could have a possibly similar. Maybe you guys were attracted to pile 1. You might have a similar message for you, in case you're attracted to pile 1. But for you with the Lovers reverse, oddities that people find interesting is the fact that you have a lot of self-love for yourself and you focus on yourself. You put yourself first. I feel like for this pile, it's giving me Samantha from SEX and the City. I know it's funny, but I sometimes avoid saying certain words because they're like not favorable for the algorithm. But yeah, I do feel that. Let me just take a sip of water. It feels for me that when I think about this pile, I think of Samantha from Sex. Oops. Sorry. Well, and the City. Anyways. Where she ends up putting herself first. Like, she has no issue being in partnership. She has no issue exploring and experimenting with many aspects of what her Sexual, I misspelled it. Sexualize. I misspelled it, sorry, but I'm just gonna say the word without the S. Lectualized, right? So, well, more so like lectualizing what her lectualize. I can't even say. I'm trying to say the word. If it doesn't make sense, I'm sorry, pile too. But what I'm trying to say is that she has no issue exploring her sexuality. There you go. You know, without saying the S, which I totally just said it, but it does feel like that, where it's like you can relate to that character, where she doesn't feel the pressures of societies, and she doesn't feel like she needs to be judged. You know, she doesn't, like, she can look away from them. It's like, whatever, I do what I want. I'm gonna put myself first. I'm gonna put my needs first. It's giving me very much a strong Mars Venus energy, where it's like you allow that drive to lead you to very interesting places, and that might just be with lessons when it comes to people, so that you end up valuing yourself more. So it does feel like this pile does put themselves first, because they've learned a lot through partnerships. They don't always have to be toxic. It just feels like maybe this person in time had to be around because they had a lesson with you, and vice versa. And then you moved on to the next person down the road, and like you had a very different stage of life, and you ended up learning a lot about this and about yourself. So it feels like that, where it's like valuable independence that is needed, right? And it feels nice. It feels like, yeah, this can be negative, like, oh, you know, you could be a bit of a heartbreaker and stuff, but not necessarily. It's giving me more that you put yourself first in that aspect, where you know how to value yourself, and you learn that through partners, but it does feel like maybe even you have that, you allow partners to put themselves first too, and you know, you teach them a lot about a proper unionship, and how about there should be a balance, right? Not just like one person over the other, special needs about, you know, what they want. So that's what I feel for you, pile number 2. That's some oddities people find interesting about you, but they're still interesting nonetheless. So pile number 3. I just wanted a burp, sorry. You guys have the 2 of Swords reversed. Maybe I should take a sip of water. Give me a sec. Some interesting oddities people find interesting about you is the fact that you're very decisive. Maybe that's not very common for, you know, your age or your, you know, gender. I don't like always thinking about that, but like sometimes it can be an issue when it comes to your upbringing, and maybe it's also the fact that you are strong-minded, you speak your mind. That can be something that's odd, people find peculiar when it comes to where you're coming from, for example. And maybe you make them think out of the box, where it's like, you know, you make them take out those rose-colored glasses and face the reality of, like, if you want something done, you're gonna have to go get it yourself. You're not gonna just have somebody else fix it for you. Like, they can help you down the road, but honestly, a lot of the hard work is just meant for you to do, right? So maybe that's what you teach people. You teach people about making decision making. Maybe that was terrible. You teach people how to be better decision makers, because they might not always have the best management skills when it comes to that. Their thinking skills aren't maybe not up to par, but it just feels like they could sharpen that a little bit more. Or maybe you could just, you know, expand them. Like, using the mind is still a tool, like a muscle that they need to be exercised. That needs to be exercised. I'm sorry. This pal's making me so nervous. I think you're just very good with your words as well. I just think you're very a very airy person, someone that can think from all perspectives, and you enjoy a good conversation. But I do think that maybe it might give you sometimes a bit of a hard time, which is why people might find it odd because of where you're located, maybe. Or maybe, like, example, if you're like in a university setting, you can be the person who thinks very differently from the rest of your peers. And that's not to say that you're wrong, but it's just a very, maybe, how can I say, it's a very, what's that? I'm trying to think of the word, but I can't think of it. But like, you make people want to think, like, not triggering, but like, I can't think of the word. I just have the tip of my tongue. But you really do make people think. It can be not paranormal. What's that word? I think it starts with a P, possibly. But yeah, I'm sorry, I can't think of the word right now. But you polarizing. There you go. You can have a polarizing opinion, and whether it's its will or not, you always make people think, and it's something that might annoy people sometimes. Not everybody, but some people, because it feels like you make them think about what's really going on internally, because you're not like that. You're like, whatever's eating at me is gonna be coming out. Like, it's just gonna. You're not gonna. Not necessarily that you don't have a filter, but it's very much gonna be processed internally. But you can release that energy out into the world. So that's what I feel. That's something that's interesting about you, pile number 3. So thank you. Next, pile number 4. You guys have the Hierophant upright. Whew. Okay, sip of water. Okay, pile number 4. What are some oddities or oddity that people find interesting about you? Is the fact that maybe you can come out a little bit preachy, or you're someone that's incredibly. I do think overall you're incredibly wise, but I do think maybe that you can, like, maybe from time to time critique, right? And maybe it just gives me like Sagittarius energy, where like they are really good at focusing on a point, but sometimes it's like, okay, I get it. I don't need to be over explained. Like, I got it not explaining, but you got it the first time. Like, you want to continuously give different perspectives to the same issue, and it's like once enough. So maybe that can be like a little bit of one of those oddities people find interesting about you. I do think you're also incredibly scholarly and smart, so maybe you also went to a very, like, compared to everybody else that you are thinking about, the people in your mind specifically that are coming up into your mind right now, you could possibly be a little bit more educated. Not like you're better than them, but you're more educated through the school system because you decided to study X, subjects. Like, you decided to go for math, or you decided to go to like study to be a researcher, or like do stuff like that. It just feels like you went to go get yourself more expanded in your mind. Like you decided to elaborate on that, and that's why people can think like, oh, this person's really smart and wise. Like, they must know what they're doing, right? Because like when you speak, it's like gospel, right? So maybe it could be like that. Not snobby, but it can be like, fancy words. Maybe we're attracted to pile 3 too, but I do think that you are brainy, and people find that odd and interesting compared to them. Maybe you're surrounded more by people who are more. There's nothing wrong with this, but more superficial. Like, they just want to have a lighter way of thinking, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Everybody has a different way of life, and maybe that's why they find you interesting. It's like, it's like Belle when they made fun, like they taunt her. They don't make fun of her, but they taunt her from Beauty and the Beast, where they are singing the song. I forgot what the song. It's in the intro, but they're basically saying it's like she's a bit of a bookworm, basically, and she's funny, interesting, but pretty, but funny. And I'm not specifically going about your appearance like that. Like, you could be funny looking or anything, but it's just like, for overall, the vibes that you give off is someone that's very well educated, very disciplined, like a very good. Like, maybe you could have even studied law, and like you could have been like a judge or something. You'd be like, yeah, like I deal with people like on the day-to-day about menial things, or you review cases and you try to be as fair as you can. It just feels like you're someone that's tries their best to be fair and give a non-biased opinion you try your best, but that doesn't mean you won't achieve that all the time, right? You will achieve that all the time, right? But it does feel these are some of the interesting points about you that they really want to make sure, like the specific people you're thinking about more so see you in this light of like, oh, this person's extremely well educated. They are a bit preachy. So you could be also like a spiritual person. That's also something that could pop up with like the Hierophant. You're someone that's spiritual or religious at that, and it's one of those main points people kind of come up with when it comes to thinking about how you give off their vibes, right? So it's some oddities people find, but they find it interesting. It's like maybe even if you are on the spiritual side, and I didn't really elaborate too much on this, but if you are on the spiritual side, maybe you're someone that owns like a little herbal shop, and like people find that interestingly odd, but interesting nonetheless. It's like, oh, this person's like quote unquote witchy, but like interesting, a different lifestyle, but it's interesting to watch. It feels like that. That's the kind of peculiarities you give off. Pile number 4, you're just someone that's alternatively smart, you know? And that's what I get from this. So thank you all for watching to the very end if you did, and please subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you soon in a different reading. So bye everybody.